How would our world change if it turned out that time does not exist? Time could be one of the greatest misconceptions in our science and culture. New evidence now shows that the reality we live in is entirely different. Time does not exist. It does not move forward or backward. This revolutionary realization could forever change our perception of reality. Who hasn't experienced the morning glance at the clock and the time management that arises from it? We are late or we run out of time in our daily lives, and we often feel stressed because there is never enough time or because time does not bring us what we desire. Scientists now warn that we are making a huge mistake that separates us from the true perception of the world and damages our brains. What is time? When you need to define the essence of time, do you think of a sequence of events, a subjective feeling, or a physical quantity? You might not be surprised to learn that science has the same problem defining time as we do, ordinary people. It is this fact that makes time so fascinating. The fact that time is elusive and, strictly speaking, cannot be proven also puts time as a quantity itself to the test. If time does not exist, science describes time as a fundamental physical quantity considered a continuous, irreversible sequence of events. Albert Einstein's theory of relativity views time as relative and dependent on the motion of objects and people. Time also behaves differently near heavy objects than near light objects or in a vacuum. Time has become an integral part of our four-dimensional world. Space consists of three dimensions: length, height, and width. Within this space, things happen, and objects move in cosmic space. Countless galaxies move, and in these galaxies, stars rotate with their planets around the galactic center. During this process, time is said to pass. A star system takes a certain amount of time to orbit the center of the galaxy. Planets orbit their stars in a certain amount of time, and on these planets, there may be creatures like us who organize their daily lives according to time. But is this subjective perception of time proof that it actually exists? Albert Einstein was not entirely sure about this throughout his life. He described time as one of the most uncertain quantities in the universe. He already suspected that time might be an illusion rather than a fixed physical quantity. The slowing down of time and the theory of relativity were correct. An astronaut could travel into space and return to Earth after a certain period. The phenomenon of time dilation would mean that time for the astronaut in space would pass differently than on Earth. The phenomenon of time dilation theoretically meant that the astronaut would return to the planet after a subjectively or actually experienced period of several years, during which much more time would have passed. The astronaut would presumably have aged less in space and would no longer recognize his former peers. This is clear from the theory. However, too little is known about the future of time to actually confirm this effect. Moreover, we currently cannot undertake sufficiently long space travels to experience the phenomenon of time dilation and study it scientifically. Albert Einstein showed in his work that time depends on speed and gravity. In the special theory of relativity, time is perceived more slowly for moving observers than for observers at rest. This shows that time is not an absolute universal quantity. The obviously relative forces acting in space remain a mystery to science today. Relative means that these forces do not represent a clear and linear quantity. The differences in the effect and behavior of these forces are clearly noticeable on Earth and in the nearby universe. We should expect that relative forces, such as the motion of time and acceleration, would have a different effect in other parts of the cosmos. This fact alone could explain some of the uncertainties in describing the universe. Quantum mechanics does not know time. Do you know that your world consists of myriads of tiny particles, all of which behave very strangely? We know our world through solid things, habits, and our daily routine. In the morning, we always wake up at about the same time, go about our duties and habits, and are used to the coffee staying in the cup in the morning and being able to place that cup on the table. But just imagine that in the world of quanta, your coffee cup could also be an apple, and your table could disappear when you are not in the room. This is exactly what the behavior of quanta, tiny particles of light that make up our matter, demonstrates. The behavior of these particles not only challenges our world of matter, but also time. Quanta do not know time, just as they can occupy different specific states simultaneously. They can occupy several times simultaneously or not know time at all. All this would mean that time is an illusion that could be related to our perception of matter. But if we realize that matter and time could be an illusion, what is real? This question fascinates and keeps quantum researchers around the world busy. Classical physics has a hard time with the discoveries of quantum mechanics precisely because objects like massive stars and galaxies are nothing more than light fluctuations or optical illusions at the quantum level. Conservative scientists tend to reject the discoveries of quantum mechanics. Incidentally, the otherwise brilliant Albert Einstein was one of them. He even discovered quanta and received the Nobel Prize for it, but later he was so dissatisfied with the results of his discovery that he completely rejected quantum physics. Does time arise on the way to matter? Strictly speaking, time could have arisen somewhere on the way from the wave potential to a specific particle. However, no one has yet found this impulse. By the way, the situation is similar with the moment of time in which matter arises. Particle researchers have been trying for decades to scientifically describe the moment of the emergence of solid matter, but so far unsuccessfully. Particles acquire their mass in the Higgs field, which is related to the Higgs boson, a particle that was first detected in the particle accelerator in Geneva and then later named the God particle. However, the God particle has its pitfalls as it behaves so unpredictably that it cannot be explained how matter is created. Researchers are once again faced with a mystery. Could it be that time and matter are completely different from what we think? If time describes processes in matter, but matter does not actually exist and cannot be described, what about time? Let's assume that matter is actually just a fluctuation that arises through our perception, but is not real. Then time could also arise only in our perception and not be real. Modern philosophers such as Kurt Gödel have shown that time could be an illusion because it does not exist independently of space and matter. Gödel's work on the general theory of relativity showed that some solutions to Einstein's field equations could allow time travel, which calls into question the linearity and reality of time in a static four-dimensional universe. In some modern scientific theories, the flow of time may be absent. It is postulated that the universe is one in which all events exist simultaneously, and there is no linear flow of time. In this model, there is no past, present, or future, only static. As we travel as consciousness through this so-called block universe, we seemingly experience the flow of time. This would mean that our perception of time is directly related to our human existence and how our brain works. Theories such as timescape cosmology or the hypothesis of cosmic voids adopt these approaches and show that time may be a local phenomenon formed by the structure of the universe. This confirms the assumption that time is a relative phenomenon within the universe, but is not a fixed and defined quantity. It exists because we experience it. However, this does not mean that it is fixed or limited. DET, terminated in the sense of scientific constancy, means that time transitions from a fundamental dimension to a fleeting and changeable phenomenon that exists only under certain conditions, such as in human perception. If this is the case, we should attribute less significance to time. Overall, scientists' research should focus on areas such as studying our experience and brain. Time damages our brain. Of course, scientists have also tried to localize the essence of time in our brain, in brain time. Essentially, this happens in the so-called temporal lobe, which is located approximately at the level of the temples on the left and right sides of the forehead. When subjects are exposed to temporal stimuli, these areas of the brain react, and there is a change in the flow in brain waves. When subjects are exposed to stress stimuli related to time, these areas are practically on fire. The temporal lobes experience extreme stress conditions that negatively affect the rest of the brain. During the experiment, researchers found only a few temporal stimuli that did not stress the brain, even if you imagine always having enough time and no time stress. Subjects were given the task, but why do researchers in their work claim that the very nature of time is so negatively intertwined in our brain that all stimuli related to time represent a potential for stress? Does the illusion of time make us mentally ill? And if time does not exist, what is reality? Imagine your world as it is now, and then imagine that time simply does not exist. You probably find it difficult to imagine how strongly our feelings and daily experiences are connected to time. Buddhist monks claim that the essence and limitations of time can be overcome through techniques such as meditation. In their worldview, time is actually just an illusion. Those who have overcome time realize the eternity of all being and live in a dimension that exists outside the linear flow of time. Monks experience the change of seasons, like other people, and see the sunrise in the morning and the sunset in the evening. But they know that these events are not absolute and are not related to time or physical forces as we know them. For them, time and matter are part of the illusion of this world, Maya. Subscribe now and never miss a new video again.